There is a moment, the moment your heart stops, when the world you've known your entire life collapses like a stage set pulled from beneath your feet. The noise of the physical world cuts out as if someone yanked the plug from existence itself. And then something happens that, honestly, no one can properly explain, but thousands across every culture have reported. You are still there, not as a body, not as a personality, not as a thought. You are there as a witness. And here is the revelation that shocks even hardened skeptics. The experiences people describe at the threshold of death, when consciousness slips free from the body like a hand from a glove, match almost perfectly the ancient Tibetan descriptions of the Bardo. The intermediate state between death and rebirth, mapped more than 1,000 years before modern medicine even existed. How could people separated by continents, time, religion and culture describe the same transition, the same tunnel, the same beings of light, the same dissolving of identity, the same panoramic life review? How could the Tibetans have written with surgical precision about what a modern trauma patient in a hospital bed reports today? The answer is simple and, well, kind of terrifying. Because they weren't theorizing. They were documenting what actually happens when consciousness peels away from the body. Near-death experiences are not anomalies. They are glimpses, brief, interrupted journeys into the very realms the Tibetans spent lifetimes preparing to navigate consciously. The tunnel of light, the magnetic pull beyond the body, the peaceful luminosity, the terrifying visions, the beings that radiate recognition, the review of one's entire life in an instant. These are not hallucinations. These are the Bardo stages unfolding exactly as described, only interrupted by the shock of returning to the physical world. And this is where your journey begins. Ask anyone who has died and returned what happens right after the body fails, and you will hear the same story. I felt myself leaving. They describe floating above the scene, seeing their own motionless body, hearing the doctors pronounce them dead, watching their family cry beside them. But they do not feel fear. They feel clarity. An almost crystalline awareness, sharper than anything they ever felt while alive. This is the Tibetan Bardo, the first Bardo, the moment when the outer world dissolves and the inner world, the world of pure consciousness, opens. People call it a tunnel, a beam, a vortex of light, but the Tibetans described it long before modern patients had vocabulary for it. They said that at the moment of death, consciousness is drawn through a radiant passage, a luminous channel that rises from the heart or crown. They called it the clear light of the Dharmata, the pure, naked awareness that is revealed when the body's illusions drop away. Near-death experiencers say, everything was light. The light was alive. The light knew me. The light was me. This is not poetic exaggeration. They are describing the exact state the Tibetans trained for their entire lives. In the Tibetan Bardo, the true nature of mind shines unobstructed, like the sun emerging after a lifetime buried behind clouds. This is why so many NDEs begin with overwhelming peace, because for the first time, the noise of the ego is gone. But here is the twist. While NDEs show only the entry of the Bardo, the Tibetans teach that this moment is the single most important moment of your entire existence. If you can recognize the light as your true nature, you achieve liberation instantly. But almost no one does, not even those who have spent decades meditating, because the shock of dissolving identity is overwhelming. And so, just as in the Tibetan texts, near-death experiencers say the same thing. The light was calling me, but I wasn't ready. If there is one near-death detail that scientists cannot explain, it is the life review, the instantaneous panoramic replay of every moment you've ever lived, not as memories, but as a full-body, full-consciousness immersion. People report reliving their childhood, their mistakes, their kindnesses, their cruelties, not from their own perspective, but from the perspective of everyone they ever affected. They feel the pain they caused others. They feel the love they gave or withheld. They feel the consequences of every choice. And here is the mind-blowing part. The Tibetans described this exact phenomenon as the karma mirror of the Tibetan Bardo, the second stage. They taught that after the initial radiance of the clear light fades, consciousness is confronted with the full vibrational imprint of its actions, not as punishment, but as recognition. Karma is not a judge, it is a mirror. It shows you the truth of how you lived. NDE survivors say the review is not judgmental. It is compassionate but uncompromisingly honest. It shows you the life you lived, the potential you ignored, the truths you ran from, the facts you withheld, the moments you could have awakened but didn't. They say the same exact phrase. I judged myself, not God, not angels, themselves. This is the Tibetan teaching in its purest form, that you cannot hide from your own mind. The Bardo simply reveals it. And the reason the life review happens during NDEs is because the body's collapse temporarily releases consciousness into the psychic fields where karma is recorded. In other words, NDEs show that karma is not metaphorical. It is neurological, psychological, energetic, and deeply real. You are not punished for your actions. You become them. Almost every near-death experiencer reports encountering beings made of light, figures radiating warmth, compassion, and indescribable intelligence. Some call them angels, some call them guides, some say they were deceased relatives. Others say they had no face but felt like home. The Tibetans described these beings in extraordinary detail a millennium ago. They called them the peaceful deities, manifestations of your own awakened mind appearing in forms you can understand. They said these beings are not separate entities, but luminous reflections of your highest potential, arising to guide you through the Bardo. The shock? NDE survivors say exactly the same. They communicated without words. They knew everything about me. They were familiar, even though I didn't know who they were. They radiated unconditional acceptance, and over again. They told me it wasn't my time. In NDE accounts, these luminous beings often guide the person through the life review, accompany them through the tunnel, or greet them in a realm of overwhelming beauty. The Tibetans wrote that these deities appear on the very first days of the Bardo journey, attempting to help consciousness remain calm and recognize its own true nature. The match between these descriptions is so exact, it's almost impossible to ignore. How did ancient monks in the Himalayas describe the same luminous presences that modern cardiac arrest patients see in hospitals around the world? They were mapping the interior architecture of consciousness long before science admitted it even existed. Not every near-death experience is peaceful. Some people describe these terrifying realms, overwhelming darkness, distorted beings, or chaotic landscapes that honestly feel like nightmares made real. Traditionally, these experiences were dismissed as hallucinations, but the Tibetans recorded them with chilling accuracy. After the peaceful deities of the early Bardo, the wrathful deities appear, not as demons, but as the shadows of the mind, the unresolved fears, trauma, and suppressed impulses that rise when consciousness is no longer shielded by the body. These visions are not punishments, they're projections. They're the ego resisting dissolution. They're the psychological debris you never integrated during life. And here's the revelation. People who experience hellish near-death experiences report the same thing the Tibetans wrote, that the moment they stopped resisting, the terror dissolved instantly. Why? Because these forms were never external. They were internal storms, given shape by the collapsing ego. The Tibetans said that if you recognize the wrathful deities as your mind's own projections, you achieve liberation. Modern near-death survivors say, "When I stopped fighting, the darkness vanished." The parallel is exact. The terrifying realms of near-death are the same psychological landscapes that the Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches practitioners to navigate consciously. This is why the Tibetan tradition trains its monks to face inner fear long before death. Because really, whatever you avoid in life becomes the monster you meet in the Bardo. In thousands of near-death accounts, there is a moment, a boundary, where the experiencer senses that if they cross it, they cannot return to life. It may appear as a river, a veil, a gate, a bridge, a line, or simply a feeling. And almost universally, the beings of light tell them, if you go further, you cannot return. The Tibetans describe this moment with astonishing precision. They said that after the peaceful and wrathful visions arise, consciousness reaches a pivot point. The karmic winds begin pulling it toward rebirth. Once this momentum is fully engaged, returning to the physical body is almost impossible. This is why near-death experiences always happen right before this threshold. People return because their karmic trajectory is not finished. They come back because the purpose of their current life is not complete. They return because something within them has not yet been lived, healed, expressed, or awakened. And just as modern experiencers describe, the Tibetans said that guides appear to help the consciousness decide whether to continue or return. They wrote that the return to the body feels like being pulled violently downward, like falling back into heavy matter, while near-death survivors say the same. I felt myself being sucked back. I slammed into my body. It felt like I had been dropped from a height. The match is uncanny. The Bardo is not mythology. It is a map of consciousness during the very transition modern patients now describe, with medical equipment recording their every heartbeat. After examining thousands of near-death experiences and centuries of Tibetan teachings, the question becomes impossible to ignore. Why are they identical? How could people from cultures that never heard of the Bardo describe its stages step by step? The answer is not cultural, it's not religious, it's not psychological, it is not neurological malfunction. The reason near-death experiences look exactly like the Bardo is because they are the Bardo, or at least the opening sequence of it. When the body shuts down, consciousness detaches. When consciousness detaches, perception shifts inward. When perception shifts inward, the architecture of mind becomes the landscape of experience. This is the core teaching of Tibetan Buddhism. The afterlife is the mind turned inside out. You do not enter a new world when you die. You enter the deeper layers of the one you've always carried. Near-death experiences show that consciousness is not created by the brain, because the clearest experiences happen when the brain is offline. They show that perception does not depend on the senses. because people see and hear things their physical organs cannot perceive. They show that identity is temporary, because the person who dies feels more real, more awake, more conscious than the one who lived. And they show that the Tibetans were not guessing. They were describing the inner mechanics of death from direct experiential knowledge. Knowledge gained through meditation, yogic practice, and the transmission of those who had reached states beyond death long before they physically died. If the Bardo and near-death experiences mirror each other perfectly, then the most important question is not what happens when we die, but what does this reveal about how we should live? The Tibetans taught that the way you meet the Bardo is shaped entirely by how you meet your life. If you live unconsciously, you enter the Bardo unconsciously. If you live in fear, you enter the Bardo through fear. If you live fragmented, you enter fragmented. But if you live with awareness, if you recognize your thoughts as illusions, your fears as projections, your suffering as a teacher, your relationships as mirrors, your consciousness as the fundamental reality, then the Bardo becomes not a realm of confusion, but an opportunity for liberation. Near-death experiences come back changed because they tasted the truth the Tibetans preserved. That consciousness continues, that love is the essence, that fear is self-created, that we are more than the stories we tell about ourselves. The Tibetans say that life is the training ground for death. Near-death experiences say that death reveals the truth of life. Both point to the same revelation. You are not the character in the story. You are the awareness watching it unfold. And when you understand this, truly understand it, fear dissolves. Life opens. The Bardo becomes familiar. The afterlife becomes not a mystery, but a continuation. And right now, in this moment, you begin to live not as a sleeper wandering through a dream, but as the consciousness preparing to awaken within it.